Last year felt like such a defining year for female pop stars. It felt like every other week there was new music being released, and honestly, considering the droughts that we've had this year, what a time to be alive back in 2024 for music. Clumsy tangents, but I've also seen an increased interest in racing. I recently read an article about the K-popification of racing. An interesting quote that I picked up was,
"In many ways, F1 has evolved from a legacy motorsport into something that feels more like a multimedia pop franchise. F1 drivers are no longer just elite athletes behind the wheel. They're fashion muses, meme material, and, in the eyes of growing Gen Z fan base, idols. It's no surprise the sport has drawn fans from other hyper-engaged fandoms."
There exists 2 Formula 1 series that I know about on Netflix. F1 movie just came out earlier this year with Brad Pitt and Damson Idris at the helm. It definitely feels that there's an increased interest, particularly by women and girls, in racing. In that vein, I've noticed something, and it's the use of cars in music videos and lyrics. This, of course, is not new. Cars in songs in general is a staple. And honestly, is there a more pervasive duo than bad bitches and cars in music videos? So I thought I'd explore the use of cars in more contemporary music videos and lyrics by female pop stars. So yeah, make sure to subscribe. This is my channel, Half Baked Takes, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I think before we start with pop stars and cars, we have to go back to women and cars and the language and imagery used in advertising, because at the end of the day, these pop stars are brands. They're selling you something, whether it's the music, whether it's tickets, whether it's merchandise, or full-on products and sponsorships. So let's talk about the relationship between women and cars in media historically. So the Victorian thinking that prevailed was that women were frail, weak, and really shouldn't be doing anything that would take them out of the private home and distract them from their duties as mothers and as homemakers. However, with the advent of electric vehicles, the conversation shifted from women shouldn't really be driving to, you know what, the car can be a useful tool to fulfill domestic tasks that wouldn't necessarily clash with the more desirable feminine traits. Women can go shopping for the house, they can make social calls. An article called "The Electric, the Modern Baby Carriage." Initially, women were nudged away from gasoline cars as they were seen as too powerful, complicated, fast, dirty, and they were pushed towards electric cars because they were seen as clean, quiet, comfortable. Obviously, this changed over time. Electric cars were just not as fast and as durable as gas cars, and increasingly more women wanted to go further distances and faster. Additionally, the First World War kind of shifted cultural perceptions of gender. The nature of cities changed in that they became more interconnected. Texas crude oil was discovered, so gas became cheap, electricity became more expensive. And of course, there was the mass production of the automobile and the popularization of the assembly line by Henry Ford with the Model T series. Gas cars were made cheap and they were sold cheap. This stereotype of women not being suited for cars kind of mutated into women not being good drivers, and that stereotype pervades till today. However, while women were not seen as qualified to drive cars, they sure were used to sell cars. There's a lot of terrible ads out there, and don't worry, we'll touch on objectification later. But before we get into how cars are used in storytelling by the pop girlies, I'd like to do a little caveat here by mentioning how much pop is not the only genre to do this. Rap, for example, uses cars a lot. I don't want it to come across like female pop stars' standpoints are inherently deeper with their use of cars when there are reasons. For example, systematic inequality of wealth and celebration of acquiring wealth and making it out, which could add to context as to why Black rappers specifically use signifiers like cars in their storytelling. Moreover, of course, there's the fact that driving is heavily policed while being Black, and I think that adds another layer of storytelling in rap. That isn't to say the genre is without its misogyny, but no genre, including pop, is without misogyny, and moreover, female rappers exist. So I would go as far as to say is that all the themes that I mentioned here in this video are applicable to female rappers, and then you can also include the added systematic reasons for utilizing cars in their storytelling. So yes, I definitely wanted to include that caveat. I'm sure a better, more knowledgeable person than me could break down female rappers and their use of cars in their storytelling. I'm just a bigger pop music listener than I am a rap music listener. Theme 1, money. The first to get out of the way is cars as a signifier of wealth. The car is simply ornamental, the way a really expensive handbag or jewelry would be. It's flashy, it's sexy, it's nice to look at. The Pussycat Dolls sang that when they grow up, they want to drive nice cars. You're not hearing songs about these girls wanting to drive Toyota Corollas. It's important to know it's not just about owning a car, it's owning a nice car, luxury cars that the rest of us don't have. And if you're like Tyler, you're rich enough to not have to touch a wheel because you have a chauffeur. We see cars as a way to announce one's material success or lack thereof to the world. They are status conferring objects that serve as indicators of social and economic worth, as well as key markers of identity. There's a level of ambition for stardom being explored, and not just being successful, but wealthy and reaping the material benefits of that. Britney said, "You want a Bugatti? You want a Lamborghini? You better work, bitch." Think Beyonce Upgrade You, where she states, "Let me upgrade you, introduce you to the finer things in life." She's promising to elevate the man that she's in a relationship with. And not only that, she's saying she's a good look. The same way a fancy car is a signifier of wealth and status, having her on your arm, being Beyonce, is a signifier of wealth and status. It's almost reducing herself to the object a wealthy man would tote around, like a watch, to prove he's a big man. But I love how the video kind of juxtaposes this by having her also be a wealthy man, lip-syncing to Jay-Z parts and emulating a more masculine role, as well as the feminine, the vixen, and the player. It's very sure I am a rich man. There's this part of the video where she's hanging on to the man in a suit and listing a laundry list of designer items, and it's almost like he's a mannequin, like an oversized doll, an object, and she's just thinking of all the ways to win Stardol. Or I guess dressed to impress now. It's a transaction, a mutually beneficial arrangement founded upon exuberant wealth. These songs are so fun. I love a good money song, and I also love a good critique of consumerism as balance. Car culture is forever bound to the historical relations of modern capitalist production and consumption. Marina said, "All I ever wanted was the world." She paints a caricature of this prima donna who wants and wants and wants and wants, but is never satisfied. There's this innate desire for more that can never be filled. I love the video because instead of like a super grandiose video to emphasize this insatiable desire, we get sparse and empty, dimly lit rooms. It's super isolating, and I love how in some scenes it looks like there's no electricity, literally a couple of candles in the room. It's like she broke into an abandoned mansion, which maybe once was grand, but is now run down and dilapidated, or she's holding on to memories long past of a life that once was grand. And the car we got, we didn't even see that much of. We saw her in the back seat and in a car wash, and I thought it was super interesting that like perhaps the most obvious signifier of wealth that she could have portrayed in her music video, which was the car. We didn't really see it. We didn't really see the exterior. We just saw her in the back of the car. It was shot in black and white. You could hardly see the exterior. It was just so interesting to me. I think the song highlights the emptiness constant wanting can bring. And of course, for critique of capitalism, we have Rina Sawayama's Excess, where she states, "Tesla, Lexus, I deserve it," in a song dedicated to critiquing overconsumption and capitalism and who pays the price for our overconsumption. Spoiler alert, of course, it's the global south. And I'll just leave you with a quote here. "Paradoxically, the car is both a symbol of freedom, progress, and prosperity, and a harbinger of the perils of rapid industrialization, the wreckage foisted on humanity by corporate capitalism." Theme 2, objectification. Have you ever watched Transformers? I'm telling you, it links, okay? Do you remember that moment when Megan Fox's character Michaela was attempting to fix a car, and the scene was just her like detailing what needed to be done to the car and her knowledge of vehicles, and yet the camera was lingering on her body? This goes back to women being used to sell cars. Objectification is kind of reducing people to objects. Through a feminist theory lens, it's like particularly women being reduced to objects. A core tenet of this being like reduction to the body. Much like how the camera lingers over Michaela's body while she's describing a car, implicitly likening her to a car, these songs contribute to a theme of sexual similarity stereotype between women and cars. How we can certainly have a bigger conversation on this and what choices artists have in portraying themselves, but for now, I like to think these how I've quoted them as I am sexy car songs. The pop star has a hand in crafting the narrative. The results are cheeky and punny and probably some of my favorite songs on the list, purely because I love a good pun, I love a good metaphor, I love a good simile. Tyla recently in her song Push to Start says of the chemistry between her and her paramour that it's automatic, going 0 to 100. While this leans more to the relationship side, I definitely think there's, play on objectification as well. There's pushing on my buttons with no hesitation, gas me up, give me motivation. We can talk about Grace Jones' Pull Up to My Bumper, a video where she's superimposed on videos of cars on highways at night with lyrics like "Pull up to my bumper, baby, with your long black limousine." I love how innuendo-filled the song is, but we cannot talk about cars and sexual innuendo without talking about Rihanna's Shut Up and Drive. What I love about this song is that it takes literary devices all the way. Rihanna uses similes like I got class like a 57 Cadillac, which likens herself to a vintage luxury car. The effect is meant to highlight Rihanna as expensive, classy, and rare. But the metaphors and similes don't end there. She's got a ride smoother than a limousine. She's better than the Maybach, better than the Ferrari her partner might be driving. She's going 0 to 60 in 3.5. So baby, shut up and drive. I think the idea of driving and who's got the keys is certainly instrumental in this idea of objectification. Another tenet of objectification is ownership. I think with this objectification, there's certainly a level of like voyeurism involved that we're kind of playing into. There's this unabashed ogling and appreciation of the female form like you would a car. The music video out by Tate McRae for the F1 movie is a great example of this. With images of cars interposed between images of her. It's not just the pop star is a sexy girl to look at. She's a sexy car. And again, the question we can pose is who are the drivers? And I'm trying to be very generous about it in a pop fantasy lens, because in real life, like objectification in general, of course, can be quite disgusting. We've seen ads of women being compared to cars, and there is real harm when you can objectify and degrade. You are making it okay to treat less than human. While the types of cars featured regularly change, the images of hypersexualized young women rarely do. Hardly visible as they often are in other male-dominated cultural scenes, young women exist under a spotlight of peering eyes, cast as objects whose bodies are inspected much as the body of a car would be. Again, I love these songs. It's just interesting to like analyze them through that lens. Okay, theme 3 is coming of age. When it comes to driving cars, there's certainly an element of like carefree nature and independence that pop stars explore. There's a wistfulness and an exuberance that can be tapped into, like Teenage Dream by Katy Perry or Ready or Not by Bridget Mendler. Great song. Both music videos explore this forever adventure. It's just like a never-ending great time. But I have to raise you something else. Have you ever watched Perks of Being a Wallflower? I remember writing this section of coming of age, and Sam's tunnel scene immediately came to mind. Just something carefree, youthful, and nostalgic about that scene. Louis' heroes blasting from the stereo, the tunnel lights blinkering and like reflecting off the car and Sam's face, the wind whipping her clothes and her hair, Charlie saying, "I feel infinite."
I feel infinite.
Boom. Cinema. Absolute cinema. The movie scene itself is such a core memory. The way I'm sure if I ever felt something as beautiful as that, it would stick with me. But the more I thought about the movie, the more I thought about the second tunnel scene, the scene with Charlie and his monologue. Honestly, it brings a tear to my eye every time I like rewatch that scene. I watched this movie maybe when I was around 13 or so, and I remember thinking, this movie gets it. The shyness, being introverted, the social anxiety, the awkwardness. The movie depicts trauma, mental health, and of course coming of age. And it reminded me of how, you know, there's such a tendency to romanticize youth. But ain't she romantic about youth? Lorde sang of fleeting youth and memories long past. She said it's not enough to feel the lack. I want it back, I want it back. But do you really? Like Charlie in Perk said, there are people who forget what it's like to be 16 when they turn 17. So this whole looking back with like rose tinted glasses, it's like, are you sure? Are you sure? And I wanted to talk about coming of age in the scary, uncertain ways. I'm interested in exploring the sense of freedom and the horrors that come with it. Getting a driver's license is a milestone in American cultural life, carrying significance not only for parents and youth, but also for the culture at large. It is one of the few widely shared rites of passage that signifies one's becoming an adult. I think this quote is so interesting when you look at it from the lens of a pop star. It's like having all this money, all this access and excess, but still just being a girl. I think this is how it is with learning how to drive. You're suddenly old enough to be able to operate this zooming metal contraption on the road with other zooming metal contraptions. You have to take into consideration not only yourself, but your passengers and other cars and pedestrians. It's a lot of responsibility, not to mention like the financial burden attached to owning or using a car, and you can be as young as 16. I think Olivia Rodrigo touches on these horrors of growing up really well in her song Brutal. She asks this question, are these meant to be my best years? And maybe this is a sonic response to Katy Perry when she sings Where's My Effing Teenage Dream, and she sings about her insecurities and things maybe other girls her age can relate to, but on a grander scale, like not liking the songs she writes and being in the news. Additionally, Arya Starr in her album The Year I Turned 21, in a song simply titled 21, she sang, I'm just 21, what it feels to be more than 21. I've never known, I've never tried, I've never loved. What am I supposed to do with what I've done? Where did all the years go? And what I love about both songs is that the visuals uses cars and driving to represent the emotional core of the lyrics. I loved Arya's rollout and how a speeding cop stopped her because she was driving too fast, hitting a speed of 21. She's eventually allowed to drive off, and while she has a clear free road ahead, the journey to 21 wasn't without its uncertainty. Olivia, on the other hand, gets stuck in traffic as she sings she's got a broken ego and a broken heart. The entire video was chaotic and messy, and that encapsulates part of the teenage girl experience. And her being stuck in traffic, I interpreted that as how those impressionable years seem like they last forever, but as we know, the road eventually clears. I like these two songs for this theme because it seems like they're the natural progression of the other, from Olivia saying I'm so sick of 17 to Arya Starr singing I'm so sick of 21. At the end of the day, they're just girls, okay? You know, super successful girls for sure, but success doesn't guarantee you get to escape the trappings of girlhood and the messy, uncertain parts of coming of age. And once you emerge out of that, these will all be stories one day, and these pictures will become old photographs and
Oh, you're not a sad story. You are alive. And in this moment, I swear, we are infinite.
oh my god. I think this is theme 4, Freedom and Rebellion. Tracy Chapman had a bit of a renaissance with Fast Car in 2023, and for good reason. The lyrics are cinematic and immersive. They detail Tracy making plans to leave town with a lover. I love how the lyrics start with, you got a fast car, I want a ticket to anywhere. There's this idea of desperation and dreams. It's just so delicious and so well done. Whether it's bursting out of prison like Beyonce and Gaga, or choosing to leave an ex like Chloe Bailey did in Boy Bye, a car is literally your means of transportation, your way of getting from point A to point B, and it could very well be your ticket out of whatever situation you're in. The car, at least in the first instance, seemed to have liberated my mother. We made our getaway from our father in that old Chevy one cold winter night. Legal scholars have often noted that the driver's licenses and access to cars played a key role in the lives of abused women who were suddenly free to seek help. I use this excerpt to highlight how cars for women are literally a vehicle of escape, in this instance from patriarchal violence. We could also explore how cars are used as an act of rebellion against social norms. In Beyonce's Formation, on the surface level, the lyrics point to a very good and catchy That Girl song. On further inspection of the lyrics and video, we get an unapologetic embracing of black womanhood with lyrics like I love my Negro nose and my Jackson 5 nostrils. The album as a whole was an exposure of the violent workings of white supremacy, a display of pride in her African heritage, and a subversion of patriarchal power. The most captivating images to me were the ones with the cars. Beyonce in a car doing donuts with her lemonade brains are seared in my mind. It's a gorgeous visual. And of course, her on top of the sinking police car. This of course referenced police brutality and the government neglect of New Orleans in the devastating aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. I think the overt references to facets of her blackness and black American culture, coupled with the lyrics, paint a picture of black resistance, and the cars were an instrumental part of that. There's also a great song called Stick of Gum by Nemesis, which on the surface reads like an unconditional love song with lyrics like it's easier to love you than to wonder why I do. And then you watch the video and you find out it was filmed in Palestine, and the context is deepened. It's love for her family, her roots, her country. Of course, we get a car and the scene looks carefree. The camera quality is grainy, giving like a nostalgic quality. In an interview, she had said of it, it's Palestinians liberated, smiling, having a good time with each other, having each other's company with almost nothing. I wouldn't even say it's like has a lot of overtly political themes, but I think it poses interesting questions of, is marginalized existence inherently political? Is joy radical?
Another song I had to put on here was MIA's Bad Girls. I had originally planned to record this section but kept seeing conflicting opinions on whether the song and music video were progressive or whether they were stereotypical, but I think I still want to touch on it for two reasons. Firstly, I try not to fall into the moral panic trap of like, oh my gosh, look at how this non-Western society treats inserts marginalized group, when it's like, well, not too long ago, and I would argue even presently, women and other marginalized groups aren't treated well in Western societies. So I try not to like fall into the pit of that, especially as I literally just discussed earlier how also in Western American society, women were seen as unfit to drive cars. Secondly, I still think in any context, Bad Girls, the title of the song, is still rebellious. I would argue since girls are socialized to be good and quiet and well behaved, a bad girl is almost oxymoronic. She said, live fast, die young, bad girls do it well. Break all the rules, live how you want, bad girls do it well. And I mean, the video is absolutely incredible. Her and the director Romain got inspiration from the Saudi car drifter scene, and I think for me that's what makes it stand out from the deluge of, or from, you know, the discourse of, oh, is it revolutionary or is it stereotypical? Like maybe it's one or the other, maybe it's both, maybe it's neither, but I think we can agree that it's a great looking video. Like it's so sick. It's probably one of my favorite videos on this list. So yeah, I think I definitely had to like come on here and include that.
Regardless, both incredible videos that showcase themes of freedom and rebellion. The next thing is Danger and Trappings of Fame. I feel like everyone my age has a parent or relative that did not play about Princess Diana. She's the reason why people on Twitter call a different celebrity every other week the People's Princess. That is in reference to Diana. The nickname was originally given to her because of how kind she appeared to be. She famously said that she wanted to be the queen of people's hearts. She tragically died in a car crash involving paparazzi chasing her down. I love how Ray uses the car literally as a vehicle down a dark and dangerous path of self-destruction in her song Escapism. She sings, I'm back to the bar, to the Bentley, to the hotel, to my old ways. We've discussed how a car can be sexy and luxurious, but of course under the wrong circumstances, driving or being in a car can turn dangerous. Billie Eilish sang about the trappings of fame, how becoming famous young can afford her luxuries like cars and a house at 17, but can't afford privacy and safety that being unknown grants you. She muses about meeting boys, meeting friends, fleeting youth, and all the things that are muddied and exasperated by the dizzying effects of fast fame. The lines 30 under 30 for another year, I can barely go outside, I think I hate it here, are super evocative and juxtapose her career being taken to new heights with being miserable. They make the listener wonder how much of all of this success is even worth it if you can't go outside, if you can't enjoy it, if you're not safe, if you're being stalked. The music video shows her walking down a dark road, careening cars zooming past her. It's dizzying, it's fast, it's haunting, and it shows how much a whirlwind being famous so young can be. Lady Gaga plays with themes of celebrity in her music video for Paparazzi, where she's wheeled out of an almost hearse looking like limo. In the end, she's arrested and taken into a cop car for killing her boyfriend. The video kind of touched on the fickleness of fame, the relentlessness of paparazzi, who we know especially tormented female stars and celebrities in the early 2000s. But also maybe the idea of celebrity kind of courting a media frenzy. It actually reminded me of the movie musical Chicago and how Roxy did all she did for her 15 minutes and played up sensationalism just for people to be interested in the newest salacious pretty girl and dump Roxy like yesterday's news, literally. Jade Thirl tackled her complicated feelings of the music industry in Angel of My Dreams, which had her laid up next to a literal music industry giant in a limo. There's a distinct lack of privacy and entitlements to these women and their personal lives, not only by the general public, but by the industry that they're in. I think interestingly enough, this kind of ties back to my objectification theme. When we deny the humanity of people, even famous ones, it's easy to commodify them and to put them into potentially harmful situations because you forget that they're a person. The next theme is intimacy. So the growing popularity of the automobile also facilitated increased sexual activity among young people because of the privacy it provided. I think you can take this in two ways, right? What you do in the car with your partner partner, and then the car and driving being a metaphor for the relationship as a whole. When it comes to the first, I like to think of cars and intimacy as a sliding scale between Beyonce's Bodyguard and Beyonce's Partition, okay? If you know just a little bit about Beyonce, she loves playing around with Bonnie and Clyde, undying devotion and loyalty, being on the run with her lover, forgetting about all the outside noise, who wants that perfect love story anyway. I'm related, but how crazy was that On the Run trailer? And if you remember at the end, it was like, oh, movie coming never. Fast forward to Renaissance and like now Cowboy Carter, and it's like visuals coming never. Like, how crazy? How crazy is that? But yeah, on one hand, it's super sweet and being dedicated to being a person's ride or die, a la, you know, Bodyguard or in Two Most Wanted. And on the other sliding side of the scale, the extreme side, we can go super raunchy. We can go Est que tu aimes le sexe, driver roll down the partition. I don't need you seeing Beyonce on her knees, super horny, super sexed up. Honestly, I could do a whole video on Beyonce and cars because that's a genre on its own. Chaperone in her song kind of puzzles about how relationship with someone could be casual when they're literally hitting sexual and emotionally intimate milestones. I've explored so sweet to so sexy, but you can also kind of get like the dizzying effects of a relationship. For example, Taylor Swift loves a bad driver. In Red, she likened loving your partner to driving a beautiful new Maserati, which are famously known to be very luxurious and incredibly fast cars. The relationship being uninhibited, fast, passionate, and ending as abruptly. Lyrics like remember when you hit the brakes too soon, 20 stitches in a hospital room, or he can't keep his wild eyes on the road. Those kind of lyrics highlight that there's an element of danger and perhaps a thrill from that. Because she's such a diaristic writer, the things she sings about could very well be her own experiences or experiences of the characters that she explores. So yes, it could be her partner is a bad driver, but also that driving and the car journey could be a metaphor for the relationship, and it could be both. It could be sexy, thrilling, fast, but also kind of scary. One of my fave, the car journey is the relationship metaphor, comes from Lizzie McAlpine. You may say ceilings. You may say ceilings. And Ceilings is a great song. It's a great for, you know, the delusional girls manufacturing intimacy where there wasn't or isn't anymore. There's a reason it blew up on TikTok. That verse specifically kind of revs up slowly before speeding up, and it's super cinematic and it's super immersive. It's a great song. However, I Raise You Reckless Driver, she's a careful driver, he's a reckless one, and she tells him all the time to keep his eyes on the road. Like, it starts out sweet, slowly descends into haunting. The way it builds up momentum and tension before abruptly stopping, mimicking a car crash. I like that, and I like that there was like a consistent image and metaphor that she was weaving through not only like the lyrics but like the sound and the music video. Okay, so we're nearing the end of our little video here. Some honorable mentions: cars used in revenge and retaliation plots. Maybe Picture to Burn, Hold Up, Bitch Better Have My Money, Got It Like That by Jay Stevens, Please Please Please, perhaps. A subsection of this is maybe cars being used as a vehicle for a scheme, or cars being used as a punching bag for aggression. Sometimes these girls are on the road and on the run like Fergie and Glamorous, and sometimes they just want to go to town on inanimate, expensive objects like Beyonce. I also wanted to do something about having carefree fun, like It's Always a Good Time by like Carly Rae Jepsen and Owl City, but it's just too broad and I felt like it overlapped too much with like the youth theme that I explored earlier. There was also a section here about Charlie XCX and cars, but I just couldn't like find the end of my point. I couldn't find the end of my paragraph. I couldn't wrap it up. But make no mistake, that's another person that could probably have their own video about them and their use of cars in their videos and in their lyrics. But yeah, thanks for listening. I love this video. I love pop culture, and on a personal level, it's probably taken me over a year to make this video. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. Don't ask me why. Procrastination is my middle name. That's why, actually. That's why. Yeah. I remember last year being like, I wrote this, and in the beginning when I was like, oh, last year was such a defining year for music, the original quote in there was actually, this year was such a good year for music. That was it, this year. But no, it's last year because now it's 2025. But yeah. it took such a long time, but I just needed it out there because I just it was just fun. It was just fun. It's just a fun premise. But yeah, it's been a great video, so I really hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. I will leave you with this quote: women have always been at the heart of the automobile, be that as a muse, message, desire, owner, or object, and we still cause ripples across design, business, education, sales, strategy, and car culture indirectly. Here's to self-possession and to driving ourselves. And there you have it. Thank you so much. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. But yeah, that was my video. Bye. This is like my interpretation of like racing. Like I'm in the pit crew, I'm finna be in the pits, but I don't know if it's giving that or confused biker lady who works at the call center. For me, it's giving like I'm on the crew, I'm like command, like they're talking to me and I'm telling, like I'm in control, you know what I mean? Like I'm there. I actually don't know. I don't know their positions. All I know is driver. All I know is driver and mechanic. All I know is driver and mechanic, but I know they be wearing this. I know they be wearing this. But yeah, get into it.